The rain fell hard on Roosevelt Avenue that November evening, turning the asphalt into a dark mirror reflecting the neon lights of closed shops. Marcus Williams, 58, pedaled his old bicycle with difficulty, the weight of 5 pizza boxes balanced precariously in the worn thermal bag on his back. His knees ached. His lower back screamed with every pothole. But he couldn't stop. Not tonight. Not ever. $42 in tips so far. He muttered to himself, mentally calculating. If I do 3 more deliveries, I can pay half the electric bill. The uniform of Tony's Pizzeria was 2 sizes too big for his thin frame. Marcus had lost weight in recent months. Stress, the doctor had said. But doctors cost money, and money was something Marcus Williams no longer had. He had been a delivery man for 8 months. Before that, for 30 years, he had been something else entirely. Something that now seemed like a distant dream, buried under layers of loss, pain, and silent dignity. The traffic light turned red. Marcus stopped, breathing heavily. His reflection in a store window showed a tired man, with graying hair and eyes that had seen too much. But there was something else in that gaze. Something that hunger, exhaustion, and humiliation had not been able to extinguish. "Hey, you." The authoritative voice made Marcus turn around. A police car had pulled up beside him, lights off but engine running. Officer Derek Hutchins, 32, leaned out the window with an expression Marcus knew all too well. Suspicion mixed with disdain. "Yes, officer." Marcus responded calmly, keeping both hands visible on the handlebars. "What are you doing riding around here at this hour?" Hutchins had that tone that assumed guilt before any question. "I'm working, sir. Pizza delivery." Marcus pointed to the thermal bag and the pizzeria logo on his uniform. Hutchins exchanged a glance with his partner, Officer Miller, younger and visibly uncomfortable. "Yeah? And what else are you delivering besides pizza?" The insinuation hit Marcus like a slap. But he had learned. Over the past months, he had learned to swallow his pride, to lower his head, to survive. "Just pizza, officer. I have 5 orders here. They're getting cold." "Getting cold, huh?" Hutchins opened the car door and got out, adjusting his belt with exaggerated authority. He was tall, muscular, with the swagger of someone who had never been challenged. "Why don't you let me check that?" "Officer, I really need to deliver these." "I said let me check." Hutchins' voice rose, attracting the attention of pedestrians hurrying by under umbrellas. No one stopped. No one ever stopped. Marcus carefully lowered the thermal bag from his back. The rain soaked his thin uniform. His hands trembled not from cold but from something deeper, a contained rage, a dignity being trampled once again. Hutchins opened the bag roughly, inspecting each pizza box as if they were packages of contraband. "What's your name?" "Marcus Williams, sir." "ID." "It's in my pocket, may I?" Hutchins nodded, his hand instinctively moving to his holster. Marcus slowly pulled out a worn leather wallet. Inside, besides his driver's license, there was a photo. A younger woman, smiling, holding a little girl. Both were gone now. Hutchins examined the ID with exaggerated scrutiny. "Marcus Williams, 58 years old. Long way from home, aren't you? What's an old man like you doing delivering pizza at night in this neighborhood?" Miller, the younger officer, shifted uncomfortably. "Hutch, he's just working. We should let him go." "Shut up, Miller. I'm conducting an investigation here." Hutchins returned the ID but didn't step back. "You know what I think, Marcus? I think you're up to something. Nobody your age delivers pizza unless they're hiding something." "I'm not hiding anything, officer. I'm just trying to make a living." "Make a living?" Hutchins laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "Guys like you always have an excuse, let me guess. Bad choices, gambling, drugs." Each word was a blade. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Inside his chest, something ancient and powerful stirred. But he kept it locked. He had to. "None of that, sir. I lost my job. I'm starting over." "Starting over at 58? Hutchins shook his head mockingly. "That's sad, man. Really sad. What did you do before? Let me guess. Security guard? Janitor?" The rain intensified. Water ran down Marcus's face, mixing with something else. Not tears. He hadn't cried in 3 years. Not since the funeral. "I was a police officer," Marcus said quietly, his voice almost lost in the sound of the rain. Hutchins stopped. For a brief moment, something flickered across his face. Then the mocking smile returned. "Sure you were, and I'm the mayor. You expect me to believe that?" "I don't expect anything, officer. I'm just answering your question." "You're a liar." Hutchins stepped closer, invading Marcus's personal space. "Guys like you always lie, always play the victim. I've dealt with hundreds like you." Miller touched his partner's arm. "Hutch, come on. This isn't—" "I said shut up." Hutchins pushed Miller's hand away. He turned back to Marcus, his face inches away. "You know what? I think you're dealing. I think those pizzas are a cover. Get on the ground. Now." "Officer, please. I have deliveries to make. People are waiting. On the ground. Face down. Hands behind your head." The street seemed to hold its breath. A few people had stopped now, phones out, recording. Marcus looked at them. Their eyes held pity, but not action. Never action. Slowly, with a dignity that transcended humiliation, Marcus Williams knelt on the wet sidewalk. The rain-soaked asphalt was cold and rough against his knees. His pizzas lay scattered beside him, boxes opening, food ruined. "Please, officer. I need this job. I can't lose this job." Hutchins pressed a knee against Marcus's back, forcing him completely down. "You should have thought of that before you started dealing." "I'm not dealing anything." For the first time, Marcus's voice broke. "I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying—" "Save it for the station." Hutchins pulled out his handcuffs, and that's when it happened. As Hutchins patted Marcus down, his hand found something in the inside pocket of the soaked uniform. Not drugs, not a weapon. Something else. A badge. Hutchins pulled it out slowly, water running off the metal surface. His face changed. The color drained. It was a police badge, but not just any badge. It was a Medal of Valor. The highest honor the department could bestow. And engraved on the back, barely visible in the dim streetlight, Detective Marcus Williams, 28 years of service, 5 commendations for bravery, retired with honors. The rain continued to fall, but everything else had stopped. Officer Hutchins stood frozen, the Medal of Valor trembling in his hand. The rain seemed to fall harder now, as if the sky itself was bearing witness to this moment. Miller stepped closer, squinting at the badge under the streetlight. "Hutch, is that real?" Hutchins didn't answer. He was reading the inscription over and over, his lips moving silently. Detective Marcus Williams, 28 years of service. The words burned into his consciousness like a brand. Marcus remained face down on the wet pavement, water pooling around him. His breathing was steady, controlled. He had been in worse positions, in darker alleys, facing more dangerous men, but never had he felt more defeated than in this moment. "Get up." Hutchins' voice was different now, smaller. Marcus rose slowly, his joints protesting. His uniform clung to his thin frame, the pizzeria logo barely visible through the wet fabric. He didn't reach for the badge. He simply stood there, waiting. This is yours?" Hutchins's aggressive certainty had evaporated, replaced by something else. Confusion. Maybe the first seeds of shame. "Yes, sir." "You were a detective?" "For 18 years. Before that, 10 years in patrol." Marcus's voice was flat, emotionless. He had learned to bury his feelings deep where they couldn't hurt him anymore. Miller picked up one of the ruined pizza boxes, tomato sauce leaking through the cardboard. "Man, I'm sorry, we didn't know." "You didn't ask." Marcus's eyes, weary but still sharp, fixed on Hutchins. "You saw a black man on a bicycle and assumed the worst. You didn't need to know. You'd already decided." Hutchins's jaw tightened. "Look, if you were really a cop, why didn't you just say so? Why didn't you identify yourself?" "I did identify myself." I gave you my ID. I told you I was a police officer. You called me a liar. Marcus bent down painfully to gather his scattered pizzas. And even if I hadn't been a cop, I still deserve respect. But that's not how it works, is it? A small crowd had formed now, keeping their distance but watching intently. Phone cameras glinted in the darkness. This would be online within the hour. Detective Williams, Hutchins started, then stopped. The title felt strange on his tongue. Look, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Wrong foot? Marcus laughed, a sound without humor. Officer, I've been on my knees in the rain, handcuffed, accused of dealing drugs because I was delivering pizzas. There is no right foot here. Miller touched his partner's arm again. We should call this in. Explain what happened. Explain what? Marcus's voice rose for the first time, raw emotion breaking through. That you humiliated a 58-year-old man trying to earn $40? That you destroyed his deliveries and probably cost him his job? What exactly will you explain? Hutchins looked at the badge still in his hand, then back at Marcus. Why do you still carry this if you retired? For a long moment, Marcus didn't answer. The rain continued its relentless percussion on the pavement. When he finally spoke, his voice was so quiet that Hutchins had to lean in to hear. Because it reminds me of who I was. Before I lost everything. What happened? Miller asked gently. Marcus looked at the young officer, seeing something in his eyes. Genuine concern. Maybe even empathy. You really want to know? Yes, sir. Marcus sat down on the wet curb, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only bone-deep weariness. 3 years ago, I was Detective Marcus Williams, decorated officer, 2 years from retirement with full benefits. I had a wife, Sarah, a daughter, Jasmine, 16 years old. We had a small house in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. He paused, staring at his hands. They were shaking now. Jasmine had leukemia, stage 4. We found out 6 months before everything fell apart. Miller sat down beside him, ignoring the water soaking through his uniform. Hutchins remained standing, but his posture had changed. He was listening. The treatment was expensive. Insurance covered some, but not enough. Not nearly enough. Experimental treatments, specialists, medications that cost more than my monthly salary. Marcus's voice cracked. I took a second job. Security work on my days off. Sarah worked double shifts at the hospital where Jasmine was being treated. We sold everything. The car, my coin collection, Sarah's wedding ring. A woman in the crowd wiped her eyes. Others had put down their phones. But it wasn't enough. It's never enough. The bills kept coming. 50,000, 100,000, more. I borrowed from my pension, took out loans, maxed out credit cards, and still it wasn't enough. What happened to your daughter? Hutchins asked quietly. Marcus closed his eyes. She died. 2 weeks before my retirement. 2 weeks before we would have had better insurance through my pension plan. 2 weeks. The silence was absolute. Even the rain seemed to soften. The funeral costs wiped out what little savings we had left. Then the collectors started calling. The bank foreclosed on our house. My Sarah couldn't take it. The grief, the debt, the loss. She had a stroke 8 months after Jasmine died. She lingered for 3 days before. He couldn't finish. He didn't need to. I'm sorry, Miller said, and it sounded genuine. Marcus stood up, gathering what remained of his dignity along with his ruined pizzas. I lost my house. My pension went to medical bills and funeral costs. I had a breakdown. Couldn't work for months. By the time I pulled myself together, I was too old, too broken. No one wants to hire a 58-year-old former detective with gaps in his employment and mountains of debt. So you became a delivery man, Hutchins said, no longer a question. I became whatever I could to survive. I stock shelves at a grocery store in the morning. I deliver pizzas at night. On weekends, I wash dishes at a diner. Marcus looked Hutchins directly in the eyes. And sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I sit in my rented room and wonder how I went from saving lives to being treated like a criminal for trying to earn an honest living. Hutchins held out the Medal of Valor. "Sir, Keep it." Marcus's voice was firm. "What good is it? It doesn't pay my rent, it doesn't erase my debt, it doesn't bring back my family, it's just a piece of metal that reminds me of a life that doesn't exist anymore. I can't keep this. It's yours. You earned it." "I earned it saving the life of a rookie cop who walked into a gang ambush. I took 3 bullets, spent 6 weeks in the hospital, got a medal and a commendation and a handshake from the mayor." Marcus's smile was bitter. "And now that rookie is probably a captain somewhere, while I'm being thrown on the ground in the rain for delivering pizza." The weight of those words settled over everyone present. Marcus picked up his bicycle. The thermal bag was empty now, all 5 pizzas destroyed. "I need to call my boss. Try to explain why I didn't complete my deliveries. Maybe he'll understand. Maybe he won't fire me tonight." "Wait." Hutchins stepped forward. "We can explain. We can tell him what happened. This was our fault." "Your fault?" Marcus laughed again, that hollow sound. "No, officer. This is bigger than you. This is every day of my life now. Being suspected, being questioned, being treated like I don't belong anywhere I go. You're just one person in a very long line." He mounted his bicycle, wincing as his sore knees protested. The crowd began to disperse, their moment of entertainment over. "Detective Williams," Miller called out, "for what it's worth, you deserved better. You deserve better." Marcus looked back, rain dripping from his gray hair. "Maybe, but that's not the world we live in, is it?" As he pedaled away into the darkness, Hutchins stood holding the Medal of Valor, feeling its weight. It was heavier than it looked, not because of the medal, but because of everything it represented. Sacrifice, honor, service, and the brutal reality that none of it mattered when the world only saw the color of your skin. Miller watched his partner's face. "What do we do?" Hutchins stared at the badge in his hand, then at the direction Marcus had disappeared. "I don't know. I honestly don't know." But somewhere in the rain-soaked streets of the city, Marcus Williams pedaled toward Tony's pizzeria, preparing to face his boss to explain the unexplainable, to beg for a minimum-wage job he desperately needed. And in his pocket, empty now of the badge that had once meant everything, was only a photograph. Sarah and Jasmine, smiling, forever frozen in a happiness that seemed like a lifetime ago. The rain continued to fall, the city moved on, and one man's dignity, crushed but not broken, flickered like a candle in the storm. Tony Marcelli was behind the counter when Marcus walked through the door of the pizzeria, water dripping from his uniform, the empty thermal bag hanging from his shoulder like a symbol of defeat. The warmth of the ovens did nothing to ease the cold that had settled in Marcus's bones. "Where are my pizzas, Marcus?" Tony didn't look up from the order screen. He was a heavy-set man in his 50s, perpetually stressed, perpetually suspicious of his employees. "There was an incident, Mr. Marcelli. The police stopped me and—" "The police?" Now Tony looked up, his face hardening. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything. They thought I was—" "I don't care what they thought." Tony's voice rose, attracting attention from the 2 other delivery drivers waiting for orders. "You lost 5 orders. 5. Do you know what that cost me? Do you know how many complaints I'm going to get?" Marcus stood there, water pooling at his feet. "Sir, I can explain. They accused me of dealing drugs. They threw me on the ground. The pizzas were destroyed in the—" "Excuses, always excuses." Tony slammed his hand on the counter. "This is the 3rd problem you've caused this month. Last week you were late because of traffic. Before that you delivered to the wrong address." "I was late because my bicycle had a flat tire and I delivered to the wrong address because the customer gave the wrong number." "I don't want to hear it." Tony pulled off his apron, his face red. "You're fired, Marcus. Get out. Give me back the uniform." The words hit Marcus like physical blows. "Mr. Marcelli, please, I need this job. I can work extra shifts. I won't take breaks, please." "The uniform, now." "Sir, I have rent due in 3 days. I have bills." "If I lose this job, not my problem." Tony pointed to the door. "You think you're special? I got 10 people who'd take your job tomorrow. Younger, faster, without problems. Marcus felt something break inside him. Not his spirit. That had been broken long ago. This was something else. The last thread of hope that maybe, just maybe, he could claw his way back to something resembling a life. "I was a detective," Marcus said quietly. "I served this city for 28 years. I saved lives. I was honored, decorated. And now I'm begging to keep a minimum wage job delivering your pizzas." Tony's expression didn't change. "I don't care if you were the president. You lost my orders. You're done." Marcus slowly removed the wet uniform shirt, standing in his undershirt in the middle of the pizzeria. The other drivers looked away, embarrassed. He folded the shirt carefully, placed it on the counter, and walked out. The rain had stopped, but the night air was cold. Marcus stood on the sidewalk, his bicycle beside him, nowhere to go. He pulled out his phone. 3 missed calls from other customers, angry about their delayed pizzas. A text message from his landlord. "Rent is due Friday. No extensions." He sat down on the curb, his head in his hands. This was it. Rock bottom. No job, no money, no family, no future. "Detective Williams?" Marcus looked up. Officer Miller stood there holding an umbrella even though the rain had stopped. Behind him, Hutchins leaned against the patrol car, watching. "What do you want?" Marcus's voice was hollow. Miller sat down beside him. "We went back to the station, told our sergeant what happened. He wants to talk to you." "About what? Filing a complaint? Getting you 2 fired?" Marcus shook his head. "I just want to be left alone." "It's not about that, it's about... Well, he knew you. Sergeant Rodriguez. He said you trained him when he was a rookie 15 years ago." Marcus closed his eyes, searching his memory. Rodriguez. A young, eager kid with something to prove. Marcus had taken him under his wing, taught him how to navigate the streets, how to read people, how to survive. "I remember him. He remembers you too. And he's angry. Not at you. At what happened tonight." Miller hesitated. "Detective, there's a video. Someone posted it online. It's already got 50,000 views. You on the ground. Hutchins searching you. Everything." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Great. So now I'm famous for being humiliated. That'll really help me find a job." "That's not how people are seeing it," Hutchins said, approaching slowly. "They're seeing a decorated officer, a hero, being treated like a criminal. The comments they're calling for my badge." "Good." Marcus looked at him coldly. "Maybe you'll learn what it's like to lose everything for no reason." Hutchins flinched, but didn't look away. "I deserve that. I deserve worse. But that's not why we're here." He pulled out his phone, showing Marcus the screen. "The video has been shared by the Police Benevolent Association, the Retired Officers Union. The mayor's office has issued a statement. This is becoming news." Marcus stared at the screen. The video was grainy but clear. Him on his knees in the rain, Hutchins' knee on his back, the moment the badge was discovered. The comment section was an avalanche of outrage and support. "This is Detective Marcus Williams, Medal of Valor recipient, treated like a criminal for delivering pizza. How does a hero end up like this? Where's the pension? Where's the department he served? This is what America does to its black heroes. Discard them when they're no longer useful. Officer Hutchins should be fired. This is discrimination, pure and simple." Marcus handed the phone back. "So what? I'm a viral video now. That doesn't get me my job back. It doesn't pay my rent." "No," Miller agreed. "But it might do something else." Before Marcus could respond, another car pulled up. A woman in her 50s stepped out, dressed professionally despite the late hour. She carried a briefcase and walked with purpose. "Detective Williams? I'm Amanda Chen, reporter for Channel 7 News. I'd like to talk to you about what happened tonight." Marcus stood up slowly. "I don't want to talk to anyone." "I understand, but your story needs to be told. Not just about tonight, but about what led you here. The medical bills, the loss, the system that fails its own." Amanda's eyes were kind but determined. People need to know that this isn't just about one bad stop. It's about how we treat our heroes when they can no longer serve us. I'm not a hero anymore. I'm just a broke old man. You're wrong, a new voice said. Sergeant Rodriguez stepped out from behind the news van, his uniform crisp, his bearing authoritative. You were a hero then, and you're a hero now. The difference is now you're fighting a battle no one should have to fight alone. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Rodriguez had been a skinny kid with acne when Marcus trained him. Now he was a barrel-chested man with gray at his temples, wearing sergeant's stripes. Tommy Rodriguez. Look at you. Look at me. Rodriguez's voice cracked. Sir, look at what they did to you. What we all did to you. You saved my life in that warehouse raid. You took a bullet meant for me. And the department let you fall through the cracks when you needed us most. The department didn't owe me anything. That's where you're wrong. Rodriguez's passion drew attention from passing cars. You gave 28 years. You bled for this city. And when your daughter got sick, when your wife died, when you lost everything, where was the fraternity? Where were the brothers in blue? Marcus had no answer. The question had haunted him for 3 years. Amanda Chen stepped closer, her recorder out. Detective Williams, will you talk to me? Will you let me tell your story? Not for pity, but for justice. So that what happened to you never happens to another officer who serves honorably. Marcus looked at the faces around him. Miller, young and earnest, wanting to make things right. Hutchins, struggling with the weight of his own prejudice and its consequences. Rodriguez, his former student, now fighting for his mentor. And Amanda, a journalist who saw not just a story, but a wrong that needed to be exposed. What good will it do? Marcus asked, exhausted. Talking won't bring back my family. It won't erase my debt. It won't turn back time. No, Rodriguez said gently. But it might prevent the next Marcus Williams, the next decorated officer who falls through the cracks, the next family destroyed by a system that takes everything and gives nothing back. Marcus thought of Sarah. Her last words in the hospital. Make it mean something, Marcus. Don't let our suffering be for nothing. He had carried those words for 3 years, not knowing what they meant. Until now. Okay, he said quietly. I'll talk. Amanda Chen's eyes lit up. Thank you. We can do the interview tomorrow, give you time to... No. Marcus's voice was stronger now. We do it now. Tonight. While the video is fresh. While people are paying attention. Tomorrow they'll move on to the next story. Tonight they're listening. Rodriguez smiled, recognizing the detective he once knew, the man who acted decisively, who seized the moment, who never backed down from doing what was right. There's something else, Hutchins said, stepping forward. He still held Marcus's Medal of Valor. I called some people, pulled some strings. Your story, your sacrifice, it's going to reach people who can help. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's justice. It's what should have happened 3 years ago. Hutchins held out the medal. Sir, I was wrong tonight. Dead wrong. I saw your skin before I saw your service. I saw a stereotype before I saw a man. And I'm going to spend a long time living with that. Marcus took the medal, feeling its familiar weight. And what about next time? The next black man on a bicycle, the next delivery driver? Will you see them differently, or will I just be the exception? The question hung in the air, challenging, demanding honesty. Hutchins met his gaze. I don't know. I want to say yes, but I don't know. What I do know is that tonight changed me. And maybe that's a start. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But change without action is just guilt. And guilt fades. Then tell me what to do. Tell me how to make this right. Marcus looked at the young officer, seeing in him the same potential he'd seen in dozens of rookies over his career. The potential to be better. To do better. Start by remembering this moment. Remember how it felt to realize you'd wronged someone. Then carry that feeling with you every day. Let it make you hesitant to judge. Let it make you slow to assume. Let it make you human. As the cameras set up for the interview, as Rodriguez made phone calls, As Miller and Hutchins stood guard to give Marcus privacy, something shifted in the night air. The story of Marcus Williams was about to become more than a viral video. It was about to become a reckoning. The interview aired at 11 o'clock that night, breaking into regular programming. Amanda Chen sat across from Marcus in the news studio, the bright lights making him squint. But his voice was steady as he told his story. Not just what happened that evening, but everything. Jasmine's illness, Sarah's death, the crushing debt, the descent from decorated detective to invisible delivery man. By midnight, the story had exploded across social media. By morning, it was national news. Marcus woke up in a motel room that Rodriguez had paid for, his phone buzzing constantly. Hundreds of messages, thousands, friend requests from people he'd never met. News outlets requesting interviews, and something else, something he hadn't expected. Money. Someone had started a crowdfunding campaign. Help Detective Marcus Williams. The goal had been set at $50,000 to cover his immediate debts. Within 12 hours, it had raised $200,000. By the end of the week, it would reach $500,000. But Marcus couldn't process any of it. He sat on the edge of the motel bed, staring at his phone, feeling nothing. Not joy, not relief. Just a vast emptiness. There was a knock at the door. Rodriguez stood there with coffee and breakfast. "You need to eat, sir." "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway." Rodriguez set the food on the small table. "The mayor wants to meet with you. The police commissioner, too. They're talking about reinvestigating what happened 3 years ago, why you didn't receive proper support." Marcus took a sip of coffee. It was bitter. Everything was bitter. It's too late for investigations. Maybe. But it's not too late to prevent it from happening again. Rodriguez sat down across from him. "Sir, you have a platform now. People are listening. You can make a difference." "I just want my life back, Tommy. My real life. Sarah, Jasmine, my home. Can your platform give me that?" Rodriguez's face fell. "No, sir. Nothing can do that." They sat in silence, the morning sun streaming through the cheap curtains. Outside, the city was waking up, indifferent to one man's pain. "There's something else," Rodriguez said carefully. "The Fraternal Order of Police wants to offer you a position, advocacy coordinator for retired officers, full salary, benefits, pension restoration." Marcus looked up sharply. "Why? Because I'm a viral video? Because they're embarrassed? Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters. 3 years ago, when I was drowning, where were they? When Sarah died alone because I was working 3 jobs and couldn't be there, where were they? When I lost my house, when I sold everything, when I was on my knees begging for any work, where was this concern?" Rodriguez had no answer. "They don't care about me, Tommy. They care about their image. I'm a public relations problem they're trying to solve." Marcus stood up, pacing the small room. "And you know what the worst part is? I'm so desperate, so broken, that I'm actually considering taking their guilt money. It's not guilt money. It's exactly that." Marcus turned on him, anger finally breaking through. "If this hadn't gone viral, if 50,000 people hadn't watched me being humiliated, they wouldn't care. I'd still be nobody, still be invisible. The system only works when you embarrass it publicly." Rodriguez stood up slowly. "You're right. You're absolutely right. It's unfair. It's wrong. But what's the alternative? Turn down help because it comes from shame instead of compassion? Let pride keep you in poverty?" Marcus sank back onto the bed, the anger draining away as quickly as it came. "I don't know anymore. I thought I knew what was right. But now?" His phone rang. An unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello? Detective Williams?" A woman's voice, professional but warm. "My name is Patricia Morrison. I'm the director of the Metropolitan Police Memorial Foundation. I've been trying to reach you." "I'm not interested in—" "Please just hear me out. What happened to you, what you've been through, it's exposed a critical gap in our system. Officers who serve honorably but fall on hard times have nowhere to turn. We want to change that. Marcus listened, weary. We're proposing the Williams Family Support Fund, named after you, Sarah, and Jasmine, a foundation specifically designed to help officers and their families facing medical crises, so that what happened to you never happens to anyone else. For the first time in 3 years, Marcus felt something stir. Not hope exactly. Something smaller but more tangible. Why Sarah and Jasmine? Why not just my name? Patricia's voice softened. Because they're part of this story too. Because Sarah worked herself to exhaustion trying to save your daughter. Because Jasmine fought with courage that deserves to be remembered. This isn't just about you, Detective. It's about every family that's been broken by a system that takes everything and gives nothing back when you need it most. Marcus closed his eyes, seeing Sarah's face, hearing Jasmine's laugh. What would this fund do? Provide financial assistance for medical bills, cover funeral costs, offer mental health support. Bridge the gap between an officer's service ending and their benefits kicking in. All the things that would have saved your family. I need to think about it. Of course. But Detective, your daughter's name could save other children. Your wife's sacrifice could protect other families. That has to mean something. After she hung up, Marcus sat holding the phone, tears finally coming. Not tears of grief this time, but something else. The possibility that his loss, his family's destruction, could be transformed into something meaningful. Rodriguez waited quietly, giving him space. They want to name a foundation after my family, Marcus finally said. That's good. That's really good, sir. Is it? Or is it just more guilt dressed up as honor? Maybe it's both. Maybe it can be both and still be worth doing. There was another knock at the door. Rodriguez opened it to find Officer Hutchins standing there looking like he hadn't slept. Behind him was a man in an expensive suit, carrying a briefcase. Detective Williams, Hutchins said formally. This is Gerald Spencer. He's an attorney specializing in police pension disputes. He's agreed to review your case pro bono. Spencer stepped forward, extending his hand. Mr. Williams, I've reviewed the preliminary documentation. I believe there are grounds to challenge how your pension was handled. The department has protocols for officers facing medical emergencies. Those protocols weren't followed in your case. Marcus shook his hand mechanically. Why would you do this for free? Because I saw that video. I saw a man who gave everything being treated like nothing. That offended me professionally and personally. Spencer opened his briefcase. I can't promise we'll win, but I can promise we'll fight. I don't have the strength to fight anymore. Then let us fight for you, Rodriguez said firmly. Sir, you spent 28 years fighting for others. Let us return the favor. Marcus looked at the faces around him. Rodriguez, loyal to the end. Hutchins, trying to atone. Spencer, offering his expertise. All of them wanting to help, to fix what was broken. But could broken things ever truly be fixed? His phone buzzed again. This time a text message from an unknown number. Detective Williams, my name is James Chen. You saved my life 18 years ago when I was being robbed at gunpoint. You don't remember me, but I never forgot. I just donated $10,000 to your fund. It's not enough to repay what you did, but it's a start. Thank you for your service. Another message. You were my daughter's elementary school safety officer. She's a police officer now because of you. Thank you. Another. You talked my son out of joining a gang. He's a lawyer now. We'll never forget you. They kept coming. Dozens of messages. Hundreds. People he'd helped over nearly 3 decades of service. Lives he'd touched. Impacts he'd made and forgotten. Marcus read them through blurring eyes, each message a small light in the darkness. He hadn't just been a detective. He'd been a presence in his community. A force for good. And people remembered. I want to accept the foundation position, he said suddenly. And I want Spencer to review my case. And I want to work with Patricia Morrison on the Williams Family Support Fund. Rodriguez grinned. Yes, sir. But on one condition. Marcus looked at Hutchins. You come with me. When I speak to officers about discrimination, about prejudice, about seeing people before you see their color, you stand next to me. You tell them what you did, what you learned. You become part of the solution. Hutchins's face went pale. That'll destroy my career. Maybe. Or maybe it'll be the first honest thing you've done as an officer. Your choice. Hutchins looked down at his hands, then back up. When do we start? Now. Marcus stood up, feeling strength return to his legs, purpose return to his heart. Because somewhere in this city, there's another Marcus Williams, another decorated officer falling through the cracks, another family being destroyed by a system that doesn't care. And we're going to find them before it's too late. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus Williams became a different kind of visible. Not invisible like a delivery man, but powerfully, unavoidably present. He spoke at police academies. He testified before city council. He met with the mayor, the commissioner, community leaders. And everywhere he went, Hutchins went with him, standing beside him, telling his story of prejudice and transformation, taking the heat, the criticism, the consequences. The crowdfunding campaign closed at $847,000. Every penny went to the Williams Family Support Fund, now a registered nonprofit. Spencer's legal review uncovered mismanagement of Marcus's pension, resulting in a settlement that restored his benefits and provided compensation. But the real change was harder to measure. It was in the police cadets who listened to Marcus speak and saw their own biases reflected back at them. It was in the revised department protocols that now provided emergency assistance to officers facing medical crises. It was in the families who received help from the foundation, saved from the destruction Marcus had endured. One evening, Marcus stood in the new foundation office looking at the wall of photographs. Sarah and Jasmine's picture hung in the center, surrounded by images of families the fund had helped. 12 families in 3 weeks. 12 families whose children would live, whose homes would be saved, whose stories would end differently than his. Rodriguez found him there. You okay, sir? Marcus touched Sarah's photograph gently. I was thinking about what she said. Make it mean something. I think she'd be proud. I know she would. It doesn't bring them back, though. Nothing brings them back. No, Rodriguez agreed, but it keeps them alive in a different way. Every family we help, every child who doesn't die because we covered their treatment, that's Sarah and Jasmine living on. Marcus nodded slowly. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. And something was more than he'd had 3 weeks ago when he was on his knees in the rain, believing he had nothing left to give. His phone rang. A number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't answer, but he'd learned that important things often came from unexpected places. Hello? Mr. Williams, this is Tony Marcelli, from the pizzeria. Marcus's jaw tightened. What do you want? I saw you on TV. I read about what happened. About your daughter and your wife. I didn't know. You didn't ask. A long silence. You're right. I didn't. I just saw an old man who couldn't keep up. I didn't see a hero. I didn't see a father who'd lost everything. Tony's voice cracked. I'm sorry, it's not enough, but I'm sorry. Marcus wanted to be angry. Wanted to hurt this man who had kicked him when he was at his lowest, but the anger wouldn't come. Only exhaustion. Apology noted. I want to help. With your foundation. I know it's not much, but I can donate. I can spread the word. I can do something. Why? Because you deserved better. Because I failed you when you needed compassion. Because... Tony's voice dropped to a whisper. Because I have a daughter. And if something happened to her, if I lost everything trying to save her, I'd want someone to treat me with dignity. I didn't give you that. Let me try to make it right. Marcus looked at Sarah's picture again. She would have forgiven Tony. She had always been better at forgiveness than he was. The foundation can always use support, Marcus said finally. Send what you can. Thank you. And Mr. Williams? You were a good delivery man. You always were. I should have told you that. After he hung up, Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. The pizza guy? The pizza guy. Marcus smiled slightly. Maybe people can change after all. Some people, when they're forced to see what they've been blind to. Marcus turned from the photographs, looking out at the city lights. Then let's keep forcing them to see. One story at a time, one family at a time, until the system can't look away anymore. Yes, sir. Rodriguez stood beside him. Until they can't look away. And in that moment, standing in an office named for his lost family, surrounded by evidence of lives saved and families protected, Marcus Williams felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Not happiness. That was too far away still. But purpose. Direction. A reason to wake up tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. It wasn't the life he'd wanted, but it was a life worth living. And for now, that was enough. 1 year later, Marcus Williams stood at a podium in the grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Convention Center. Behind him, a massive screen displayed photographs. Sarah smiling in her nurse's uniform. Jasmine in her hospital bed, still managing to laugh. And a new photo, families standing together, children healthy and thriving, homes saved from foreclosure. The annual Williams Family Support Fund Gala had drawn over 500 people. Police officers in dress uniforms, community leaders, politicians, families who had been helped. And in the front row, Rodriguez, Hutchins, Amanda Chen, and Patricia Morrison. Marcus adjusted the microphone, his hands steadier than they'd been in years. He wore a suit now, not borrowed, not bought at a thrift store, but tailored. The Medal of Valor was pinned to his lapel, no longer hidden in a pocket, but displayed with quiet pride. A year ago, he began, his voice carrying across the silent room. I was on my knees in the rain, being treated like a criminal for trying to earn $40. I had lost everything, my family, my home, my dignity. I had given up hope that anything would ever change. He paused, looking at the faces before him. Some had tears already forming. Others leaned forward, hanging on every word. But something did change. Not because of one viral video, not because of public outrage. It changed because people chose to see. To really see. Not my uniform or my skin color or my circumstances, but my humanity. Marcus gestured to Hutchins, who sat with his head slightly bowed. Officer Derek Hutchins humiliated me that night. He made assumptions based on prejudice. He treated me as less than human. And he could have walked away, defended his actions, blamed me for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Hutchins looked up, meeting Marcus's eyes. But he didn't. He chose the harder path. He chose to confront his own biases, to stand beside me as I told my story, to let his career be scrutinized and his reputation be challenged. That takes a different kind of courage. The courage to admit you were wrong and to spend every day trying to be better. Hutchins's eyes glistened. Marcus nodded to him, a gesture of respect earned through action, not words. Today, Officer Hutchins runs our law enforcement accountability program, training officers across the country to recognize and challenge their own prejudices. He's not the same man who put his knee on my back. He's better, and that gives me hope. The room erupted in applause. Hutchins stood, shaking slightly, and bowed his head in acknowledgement. Marcus continued. In the past year, the Williams Family Support Fund has helped 47 families facing medical crises. 47 children who are alive today because we covered their treatments. 47 families who still have their homes, their savings, their futures. My Sarah and Jasmine couldn't be saved, but these families were, and that has to mean something. He pulled out a letter from his pocket, his voice thickening with emotion. Last week, I received this from a woman named Maria Gonzalez. Her son had leukemia, the same type Jasmine had. She wrote, Detective Williams, because of your foundation, my son just finished his final round of chemotherapy. He's in remission. He'll start middle school next month. I don't know how to thank you for giving me my child back. Marcus had to stop, overcome. The room was absolutely silent except for the sound of people crying. She thanked me for giving her back her child. But the truth is, she gave me something too. She gave me a reason to wake up every morning. She gave purpose to my pain. She allowed Sarah and Jasmine's legacy to be life, not death. He looked up at the screen, at his wife and daughter's smiling faces. I've been angry, so angry. At God, at the universe, at a system that takes everything and gives nothing back. I'm still angry sometimes. The grief hasn't gone away. The loss is still an open wound. But now, alongside the pain, there's something else. There's meaning. Marcus stepped away from the podium, walking to the edge of the stage. If you're here tonight because you saw that video, because you were outraged by what happened to me, I want to challenge you. Don't let your outrage be temporary. Don't let this be just another viral moment that fades when the next story comes along. His voice grew stronger, more passionate. There are thousands of Marcus Williams out there. Decorated officers falling through the cracks. Families being destroyed by medical debt. People working 3 jobs and still losing everything. Heroes being treated like criminals because of the color of their skin. This can't just be about me. It has to be about all of us. The crowd rose to their feet, applauding. But Marcus raised his hand for silence. The real heroes aren't in this room. They're out there, working overnight shifts, delivering pizzas, stocking shelves, doing whatever it takes to survive while carrying the weight of loss and debt and discrimination. They're invisible, just like I was, until we choose to see them. A young police officer in the audience stood up. Detective Williams, what do we do? How do we make sure this never happens again? Marcus smiled. You start by asking that question. Then you listen. When you see someone struggling, you don't assume they're a criminal. You remember that everyone has a story. Everyone has losses you can't see. Everyone deserves dignity. An older woman stood. Marcus recognized her, Mrs. Patterson, whose granddaughter had been saved by the foundation. You gave me my grandbaby. How do I repay that? You pay it forward, Marcus said simply. You help the next person who's drowning. You be the hand that pulls them up instead of pushing them down. That's how we change things. One act of kindness at a time. One moment of seeing someone's humanity at a time. As the gala continued, Marcus found himself surrounded by people wanting to thank him, to share their stories, to promise support. But he kept searching the crowd until he found who he was looking for. Tony Marcelli stood near the back looking uncomfortable in a suit that didn't quite fit. When their eyes met, Tony started to turn away, but Marcus walked over to him. You came. I wasn't sure I should, Tony admitted. After what I did. You fired a man who needed help. You kicked him when he was down. Marcus's voice was matter of fact. But you also apologized. You donated. You tell your story to other business owners about the cost of prejudice. That matters. It doesn't undo what I did. No, but it prevents it from happening to someone else. That's all any of us can do. We can't change the past. We can only try to make the future better. Tony's eyes filled with tears. My daughter asked me about you. She saw you on TV. She said, Daddy, why did you fire that hero? I didn't have a good answer. What did you tell her? The truth. That I was wrong. That I judged someone without knowing their story. That I'm trying to be better. Tony pulled out his phone, showing Marcus a photo. A young girl holding a donation jar labeled Williams Fund. She collected $247 from her school. She wanted to help. Marcus looked at the photo, feeling something shift in his chest. What's her name? Sophia. She's 8. Tell Sophia thank you, and tell her that her father is brave for admitting he was wrong. That's a lesson worth more than any donation. As Tony walked away, Rodriguez appeared at Marcus's side. You're good at this, better than I expected. At what? Forgiveness. Letting people make amends. Moving forward. Rodriguez handed him a glass of water. I thought you'd be angrier. I thought you'd want revenge. Marcus took a sip, considering. I was angry, I am angry. But anger without direction just destroys you from the inside. Sarah used to say that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. She was right about a lot of things. She'd be proud of you. I hope so. I hope she and Jasmine can see this somehow. See that their lives mattered. that their deaths, as unfair and wrong as they were, led to something good. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. It doesn't make it okay. Nothing makes it okay. But it makes it bearable. The lights dimmed and a video began to play on the screen. Families whose children had been saved, officers who had received emergency assistance, community programs funded by the foundation. Each face represented a life changed, a disaster averted, a Marcus Williams who didn't have to lose everything. In the darkness, Marcus felt tears on his face, but they weren't tears of grief this time. They were tears of gratitude mixed with sorrow, tears of acceptance mixed with hope, tears of a man who had descended into hell and somehow found a way to transform his suffering into salvation for others. When the lights came back up, Patricia Morrison took the stage. I want to share some numbers with you. In 1 year, the Williams Family Support Fund has raised $2.3 million. We've helped 47 families with medical emergencies. We've prevented 12 foreclosures. We've provided mental health support to 33 officers and their families. We've trained over 500 law enforcement personnel in bias recognition and community engagement. The applause was deafening. But more than that, Patricia continued, we've started a conversation about how we treat our heroes, about systemic racism in law enforcement, about the invisible struggles of working people, about dignity and respect, and seeing each other's humanity. That conversation is Detective Williams's true legacy. As the evening wound down, Marcus stood alone on the balcony overlooking the city. The lights stretched out before him, each one representing a life, a story, a struggle he couldn't see but knew existed. It's beautiful, isn't it? Amanda Chen joined him, her reporter's notebook put away for once. The city at night makes you feel small and significant at the same time. I used to walk these streets in uniform, Marcus said quietly. Thought I was making a difference. Then I walked them as a delivery man, invisible. Now I walk them as someone people recognize. But I'm the same person. The city hasn't changed. Only how people see me has changed. You've changed too, Amanda observed. You're not the man I interviewed a year ago. That man was broken. You're healing. Am I? Marcus touched his chest. I still wake up reaching for Sarah. I still hear Jasmine's laugh in crowded rooms. The grief is still there, just as heavy as it ever was. But you're carrying it differently. You're not letting it crush you anymore. You're using it to lift others. Marcus nodded slowly. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just better at pretending. I don't think so. Amanda looked out at the city. You know what I've learned covering this story? That transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. You were always meant to help people, Detective. The uniform changed, but the calling didn't. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city breathe. What's next? Amanda finally asked. The foundation is established. Your story has been told. What does Marcus Williams do now? Marcus smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes for the first time in years. I keep going. I help the next family, I train the next officer, I tell Sarah and Jasmine's story to anyone who will listen. I wake up every morning and choose to believe that kindness matters, that dignity matters, that seeing people's humanity matters. Even after everything you've lost? Especially after everything I've lost. Because I know what it's like to be invisible, to be judged, to be crushed by a system that doesn't see you. And I know what it's like when someone finally does see you, when someone finally extends a hand. He looked at Amanda, Rodriguez, Hutchins, you, Patricia, Spencer, even Tony. You all chose to see me. That changed everything. Amanda wiped her eyes. This is why I became a journalist. Stories like yours. Stories that remind people of their own humanity. Then, tell more of them. There are thousands of stories out there. People suffering in silence. People who need someone to see them, to care, to act. Tell their stories. Make people see. I will. I promise. As Marcus returned to the ballroom for the final speeches, he passed a mirror. He stopped, looking at his reflection. The same gray hair, the same tired eyes, the same face that had looked back at him when he was delivering pizzas in the rain. But something was different. Not in his appearance, but in the way he stood, the way he carried himself. He was no longer hunched under the weight of shame and defeat. He stood straight, shoulders back, head high, not because his pain was gone, but because he had found a way to carry it without being destroyed by it. The final speech of the evening was his. Marcus stood at the podium one last time, looking out at the faces that had become familiar over the past year. I want to end tonight by saying something I haven't said in a long time. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for caring when I had given up hope. Thank you for turning my darkest moment into something that could bring light to others. He paused, gathering his courage for what came next. And I want to say something else, something harder. I forgive you. He looked directly at Hutchins. I forgive you for that night. I forgive Tony for firing me. I forgive the system that failed my family. I forgive the people who looked away when I needed help. His voice grew stronger. Not because what happened was okay. Not because the injustice doesn't matter. But because holding on to that anger was killing me slowly. And Sarah and Jasmine wouldn't want that. They'd want me to live. Really live. Not just survive. So I choose forgiveness. Not for your sake, but for mine. And I choose hope. Not because the world has become fair, but because hope is an act of defiance. It's a refusal to let bitterness win. Marcus raised his glass. To Sarah and Jasmine Williams. To every family we've helped and every family we will help. To the possibility that even in our darkest moments, we can find light. To the truth that broken things, when mended with care and compassion, can become stronger than they ever were before. The room rose as one, glasses raised, tears flowing freely. And to the belief, Marcus finished, his voice ringing out clear and strong, that dignity is not given by those in power. It's claimed by those who refuse to be diminished. It lives in every act of kindness, every moment of seeing another person's humanity, every choice to be better than we were yesterday. May we all choose to see. May we all choose to care. May we all choose to be the change we wish to see in the world. Thank you. The applause lasted for 5 full minutes. But Marcus barely heard it. He was looking at the screen behind him, at Sarah and Jasmine's faces, and he could swear he saw them smiling. Not with sadness, not with regret, but with pride. 3 months later, Marcus stood at a different podium. This time it was a small community center in the neighborhood where he used to patrol. A new officer's swearing-in ceremony. The young woman taking her oath reminded him of himself 30 years ago, eager, hopeful, ready to make a difference. After the ceremony, she approached him. Detective Williams, I wanted to thank you. I attended your training on community policing. It changed how I see this job. What's your name? Officer Sarah Williams. No relation, she added with a smile. But when I saw your story, when I learned about your wife Sarah, I felt like it was a sign. That I could honor her memory by being the kind of officer you were. The kind who sees people. Marcus felt his throat tighten. What made you want to be a police officer? My father. He's a delivery driver. Works 3 jobs to support our family. A couple of years ago, an officer helped him when his car broke down. Didn't just write a ticket, actually helped. Stayed with him until the tow truck came. My dad said that officer treated him like a human being, not a problem. She paused. That officer was you. You didn't know it, but you changed my family's life that night. Marcus had no memory of this. It was just another night on patrol. Just another person who needed help. But to her father, to her family, it had been everything. Officer Williams, Marcus said formally, shaking her hand. I'm proud to have you carrying that name. Wear it with honor. See people with compassion. And remember that the smallest acts of kindness can change everything. As he walked home that evening, to an apartment he could now afford, in a neighborhood where people greeted him by name, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt since before Jasmine got sick. Peace. not happiness. The grief would never completely leave. Sarah and Jasmine would always be the missing pieces of his heart. But alongside the grief was something else now. Purpose. Connection. The knowledge that his suffering had not been meaningless. He stopped at a small park, sitting on a bench where he and Sarah used to bring Jasmine when she was little. The playground was full of children laughing, parents watching, life continuing in all its messy, beautiful complexity. Marcus pulled out his wallet, looking at the old photograph. Sarah and Jasmine, frozen in time, forever smiling. He touched their faces gently. "I'm okay," he whispered. "I'm going to be okay. And because of you, because of what we went through, other families are okay too. That has to count for something. That has to mean we didn't suffer for nothing." A breeze rustled the leaves above him, and for just a moment, Marcus could swear he felt Sarah's hand on his shoulder, heard Jasmine's laugh carried on the wind. Then the moment passed. But the feeling remained. The certainty that love doesn't end with death. That legacy isn't just what we leave behind, but how we transform our pain into purpose. That dignity, once lost, can be reclaimed not through anger or bitterness, but through the choice to keep seeing humanity in ourselves and others. Marcus Williams had been humiliated on a rainy street, treated as less than human because of the color of his skin and the circumstances of his life. But he had refused to be diminished. He had taken his brokenness and built something beautiful. He had transformed his tragedy into triumph, not by erasing the pain but by giving it meaning. And in a world that too often looks away from suffering, that treats dignity as a privilege rather than a right, that sees skin color before it sees soul, Marcus Williams stood as living proof that one person's courage to remain human, even in the face of inhuman treatment, can start a revolution. Not a revolution of violence or vengeance, but a revolution of empathy, of seeing, of choosing again and again to recognize the sacred humanity in every person we meet. That was the badge Marcus carried now. Not medal and commendations, but the knowledge that he had taken the worst moment of his life and transformed it into a legacy of hope. And that, more than any medal, more than any title, more than any honor, was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to never miss stories of courage and justice. Like if you believe dignity matters, share to inspire someone who needs hope today. Your voice counts.